Friday the 26th of the 9th, 2025. The time is 22 minutes past 8. And as always, that means one thing, that there are, of course, a very many F1 centric thread at which we must pull if your boy can enunciate. We'll talk about Lewis and Roscoe. So too, we'll talk about Lando Norris and British Vogue. Not long after he yeeted it into the barrier and seized defeat from the jaws of victory. Surely in 2025 these drivers can have another life, but not if they're saying that their priority is not winning a championship of the drivers' variety. Gunther Steiner, so too, chiming in on the madness that is Scuderia Ferrari. We'll talk about Christian Horner, expected to be on the paddock back soon, early 2025. And finally, your main event is some Maximilian Verstappen glazing. How very dare you. We'll talk about, we are on the eve, of course, of Max making his debut proper in GT3 cars, the quick ones. And if rumours to be believed, he was out on track today practicing and destroyed the lap record. 7:45 potentially, if word on the F1 curb is something that you want to be invested. We will look at it because there is footage and it is proper chaos. In the first instance, shall we do some Lando Norris slander? You're a legend, B Menden, as always. Go on, let's talk about Lando in the first instance, because it's techie and techie things this. I was listening to the Chris Harris on Cars podcast, and Chris Harris, the legend that is, the dude who spent a day entire with Maximilian Verstappen, foursome, so soon to be five-time champion, had some things to say about Lando. I don't want to be 1950s. The era of Giuseppe Farina and Manuel Fangio is long gone. That was yesteryear. This is 2025. We are now in the Netflix era. F1 is now about monetization, financial resource, broadening your competitive landscape and your social media footprint. That's what we're dealing with as at 2025, isn't it? So I don't want to hate on Lando Norris for doing just that. Who, after Sir Lewis and Maximilian Verstappen, is going to rise a rising boat floats all F1 tides type thing? Who after them? Where's the next one? Charles Leclerc's not going to do it, although he could be that guy. And I think Lando Norris, and they think on the Chris Harris on Cars podcast, that Lando Norris may well be that next dude. Lando Norris shoots this with British Vogue. I can't help but let me take it serious for a second before we go scorched earth on Lando Norris. Look, there is something to be said for Lando. He's always said that his interests lie further adrift than just racing. You're never going to see him at the NORDSCHLEIFE for racing GT3 cars, just like we'll witness this race weekend with Maximilian Verstappen, foursome say soon to be five-time champion. That's just not Lando Norris. It's not who he even claims to be. Yeah, you'll see him on the road driving a Ferrari F40 or a McLaren P1. But he's a civilian outside of the F1 grid, and that's okay. Lando Norris has said on a gazillion occasions it takes all sorts of personalities. You don't need to be a fire-breathing dragon, Mr. Relentless, or Michael Schumacher, a Max Verstappen or a Lewis Hamilton in terms of your personality. If indeed you want to win championships of the drivers' variety, Lando Norris's words, not mine, and that's fine. You can get involved in Quadrant and some esports. That's cool. However, if this shoot comes out not long after Azerbaijan, a race, the latest in a long line, a litany of races where Lando Norris, aka Dustin from Stranger Things, has once again seized defeat from the not insubstantial mauls, no draws of victory, then I would argue that there is a time and place for this. Tell me, Lando Norris, that you don't want to win a championship without telling me. And you know what? He will see us that and raise us this, because Lando came out and said words to this effect, didn't he? Said, you know what? Number one priority is living my best life. Number two priority, therefore, is winning championship. What? Hang on, Lando Norris. What are you talking about, mate? We've got to have a conversation about this. If you are a racing driver, a Max Verstappen or a Charles Leclerc or a Lewis Hamilton, a Michael Schumacher or an Alain Prost, and you hear a driver, another rival on the grid, talking like that, I've got him in my back pocket. I've stolen his lunch money before we've even turned the wheel, because he does not want this And now the F1 media as a community are coming round to this belief that Lando's not driven enough, not invested enough, not prepared to pay the tax requisite to win himself a championship of the drivers' variety. Not in 2024, not now in 2025, not now, not ever. Let me reference friend of the channel Spanners over at the Missed Apex podcast talking to legendary F1 journo, the one that they call Joe Saywood, because they're saying the same thing. Roll the clip.
But he said that his priorities are not F1. His priorities are having fun and having a good life, which on the surface of it just seems like healthy and that's good for mental health. But on the other side of the coin, you're fighting for a world championship. This could be the last world championship you fight for. You're in your prime. Your knees will never feel better. You'll never have the greater opportunity on the world stage. And for him to say, it's not my priority, let's say that that's the best thing for Lando Norris. That's great, but that does question his hunger. And I think it does, comments like that.
I would tend to agree with you.
Well, that's never happened before.
I find it extraordinary that you would say such a thing, because it shouldn't even enter your head that is, because that's why you're a Formula One driver. You wouldn't be a Formula One driver if you weren't driven by absolutely mad urges and do mad things. No, it's true.
No,
you don't get to be an F1 driver by being normal. And so wanting all the normal things in life is great. That's when you retire, but not when you're at the peak of your supposed careers. It's a very weird thing to say, yeah.
Insanity. Oh, the humanity, Lando. Tell me that you don't want to win without telling me you don't want to win. Fran says, everybody knows I'm an Oscar and Max fan, but that mindset for somebody who struggles with mental fortitude is actually a good move. Why put yourself under pressure if you know pressure doesn't help you? Oh, the humanity. Take it away, therefore, says so. I get it, Franz. I understand it's a pragmatic tactic, but I've never, if past this prologue and we're talking F1 champions, I've never ever in my life, of course, variety is the spice of life, not all champions are created. I get it. Everybody's different in and outside of Formula One, but I've never in my life heard a Formula One world champion say something like that. Not in the heat of battle, like Joe Saywood asserts, maybe after they've retired, maybe after they've retired, when they've gone on the sabbatical, maybe pre their F1 career, but not in the heat of battle. That, ladies and gentlemen, is chaos. I think almost Lando Norris is portending yet another lost opportunity. I think it's techie. And that, listen, I put still front and centre of this. Sometimes F1 drivers have to cultivate their social media footprint. I get it. Lewis Hamilton has been doing that as long as I can remember. Sometimes it takes for a Michael or a Lewis or a Lando to put F1 on their not insubstantial shoulders and bring it to the non-F1 watching masses, kicking and screaming. I get it. I understand it. And this is what Lando is doing. There is, of course, more to life than F1. But call me a grizzled F1 vet, a grey-bearded one, for liking my racing drivers racy. I don't want to see them in British Vogue. I will be honest. Oh, and by the way, if we're talking about slander, should we talk about some Gunther Steiner? Because he's doubled down. He said Lewis Hamilton potentially might need to leave himself some F1. There's a couple of people that said similar things over the past couple of weeks. And this isn't the time and place for it, especially as Lewis is in hospital with his dog. His love, the one that they call Roscoe, as his dog, a man's best friend, fights for his life. Thoughts go out to Lewis and Roscoe at this very difficult time. But that notwithstanding, if we're having an objective, grown up big boy conversation about Sir Lewis and Scuderia Ferrari, Gunther Steiner said a couple of things. That Scuderia Ferrari are bottling it. There's an operation they lack for robustness as far as their operational infrastructure. That it was nonsense. Lewis was meant to give back the place. They issued the order and Lewis didn't give back the place. Of course, why not? Why not? Sir Lewis, You're telling me that the dude botched it, that he didn't know where the start-finish line was. What are we doing here? This is nonsense. You couldn't even write this in a book. A 7-time champion, GOAT settings, Mount Rushmore of F1. Didn't know where the start-finish line was. Behave yourself. Absolutely not. You couldn't write it. Impossible cinema. They would not believe you. The extent to which one would have to suspend their disbelief that Lewis Hamilton didn't know when the start-finish line was. I'm not buying it. And Gunther Steiner doubles down. He says, listen, this is nonsense from Ferrari. Like how much more nonsense can you expect from them before the likes of Charles Leclerc leave? Jacques Clear is already leaving. There have already been a gazillion god-tier intellectual F1 minds who have left Scuderia Ferrari, and you can only expect more now that the likes of Cadillac F1 are doubling salaries out here, keen to assemble themselves a god-tier F1 team with all of the personnel. It's going to get techie. I'm telling you what, Scuderia Ferrari don't realise that on a long enough timeline, the survival rate is always zero, particularly if you're driving the red car with the yellow badge and the black prancing horse atop, and you are making a habit out of failure. This isn't just me pointing the finger at the drivers, Charles Leclerc and Sir Lewis Hamilton. This is me pointing the finger at the whole team. Montezemolo has told you that leadership is something that Scuderia have been lacking for as near as makes no difference the past 5 years, and I concur. Look at the previous victims. God-tier peddlers, one and all. Fernando El Pan Alonso, man from Oviedo, Asturias, 2-time champion, man who sent Michael Schumacher off into the distance, retired him as near as makes no difference. For the avoidance of doubt, Fernando is a god-tier peddler. God-tier, truly. He went to Fiorano, no dice, nothing doing. He couldn't fix it. Sebastian Vettel, 4 championships, back to back to back to back, 2010 to 2013. He thought that he was going to conquer the mountain that is Scuderia Ferrari. Nothing doing. No chance. Kimi Raikkonen won one in 07, but fortuitous circumstance, some say. That was because the McLaren bods, Alonso and Lewis Hamilton, were too busy taking chunks out of each other's points. Or suffice to say that to go and win at Ferrari, to change the circumstance, to bring forth some god-tier minds, just like Michael Schumacher did in the early 2000s, is a difficult job. There are too many dragons, fire-breathing ones of the operational infrastructure variety for which you will need to slay. Does that mean that Lewis Hamilton can't do it? I'm not going to be such a Debbie Downer. It's Friday. Do you know what I mean? Maybe he can do it, but does that mean it's improbable? Lewis Hamilton, 40 years old, only been ever 3 champions in F1 history to win a championship at his age or older. Farina in 1950, 57 Fangio won his last one, and Jack Brabham in 66. Of course it does. Can you spell improbable? At this juncture, I feel like I want to buy myself some lottery tickets. I'll have more chance of winning than Lewis will. His first for Ferrari and his 8th over the course of his career. It's going to get techie. Maurice Hamilton chimed in as well and said, listen, Lewis might not win anything this year. Do you know what I mean? He might not even get on the podium. But if next year it doesn't work, Son's ground effects, brand new rules and regs in 2026, SF26, he's gotten all of his memos in, had all of his conversations with the Ferrari personnel. If 26 therefore doesn't work, then Houston, we have a problem. Chris Harris on Cars, they were talking about Lewis Hamilton's tenure at Ferrari, and they said this, that the word on the F1 curb is that potentially next year could be Lewis Hamilton's last. I mean, he's 40 years old. Rumour is that he has a 3-year contract, a 2+1. If he completes the first 2 years and both parties, Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton, want to extend for an additional third, then they are free to. But just purvey the driving landscape as far as Formula One's concerned for a second. Look at the likes of Ollie Behrman, Isaac Hadjar's on the come up, Antonelli so too on the come up. There are a deluge, a plethora even of young, hungry lions that are ready to go and do something now. This is the young rookie era, is it not? So you mean to say you're going to continue Ferrari, John Elkann, paying Sir Lewis Hamilton at the ripe old age of 40, $100 million per year to not win any races? Put on your finance cap for a second, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, and tell me why and how that makes sense. You cannot, because it does not. The likes of Stellantis and Ferrari and Alcon were looking to get a payback. Yeah, the marketing was crazy, right? Biggest, most engaged Instagram post with Lewis in the bloody Godfather outfit, touching the yellow badge with the black prancing horse on top. That was the story in F1 at the start of the season. But sometimes you've got to deliver at some point on that not insubstantial promise. Oh, and by the way, speaking about driver silly season, can we talk about Kimi Antonelli for a second? Because word on the F1 curb was that Antonelli was on the brink, this close away from being replaced by Carlos Sainz Jr. Oh, the humanity. Kimi Antonelli has struggled. He's talked quite openly, aka a la Lando Norris, about his struggle season to date. A congested schedule, getting knackered from too many sponsorship, but from the demands of too many sponsors. He's only 18 for peak's sake. He's just left school. Give the dude a break. Extend him some grace, surely. However, in the weird and wacky world that is the F that wonks, what have you done for me lately is all that counts. And Kimi Antonelli, particularly in the second third of the season, there's been questions asked. Toto's been backing Kimi Antonelli all the while, has he not? He's the guy. He's the next one, the next Lewis or the next Maximilian Verstappen. Every time I look at him through the feeder formula, he's been God tier. He's proven it. That's what Toto said. And then all of a sudden, a couple of races ago at the Italian Grand Prix, Kimi Antonelli's home Grand Prix at Monza, a track around which he should be an expert at this stage. Toto said, well, that wasn't the greatest of performances from Kimi. He laid down the gauntlet to his charge that you've got to do better, sir, if you want to continue as a Mercedes driver. His teammate George turned around and did the same, didn't he? Around all this Max Verstappen talk to Mercedes in 2027, George said that he was never fearful, notwithstanding the fact that he's currently in negotiations, looking to extend his contract with Mercedes, negotiating, doing double jeopardy with his manager and team principal. Toto is both. George was like, I'm not leaving here. If anybody's leaving, the boys from Brackley and Brixworth, he has a name, and his name is Kimi Antonelli. I am staying here. So all eyes were on Kimi Antonelli. I did not know that there'd been a lot of speculation in the paddock that Carlos Sainz was this close. Remember, people said once upon a time that he had a clause in his contract that stipulated if there were to be a seat at a team like a Mercedes, a team like Red Bull, that Carlos Sainz could null and void his contract with immediate effect. Remember that. Now we come to find out that Carlos Sainz was this close. If Kimi Antonelli had continued to drop the ball, that Toto Wolff would have pulled the plug, shipped him off to Williams, and coming the other way would have been one Carlos Sainz Jr. Again, rumour and speculation, but one of these, sometimes you've got to connect the dots right. I think Toto would have done it. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think he cares. I don't think he gives a fudge. All that Toto wants to do is project sign Maximilian Verstappen. Speaking of whom, getting chaotic out here, chat. I'm telling you, Maximilian Verstappen is doing one of these. Let me say this at the front and centre. A rising Maximilian Verstappen's tide floats not just all F1 boats, but all motorsport boats at this juncture. Max will be doing NLS Race 9 tomorrow. We will be streaming it from 10:30 because it's going to be chaotic. On this day, on Friday, Max Verstappen was at the track doing all kind of chaos. Again, getting his practice laps in. And rumour, if rumour is something in which you can be invested, word on the F1 curb is that Maximilian Verstappen, having only a couple of weeks ago apparently set a lap record of 7:48, jumped in the car today and did a 7:45. Apparently. Don't quote me on this, nor should you take this one to the bank. But let's take out the foot. This time we have to watch them. And again, shout out to YouTuber Mega Peter 96. Roll the clip, Cameron. Behave yourself, Diego. I mean, come on. Let's go. Rego wise, it's coming, mate. I'm telling you. Bear with. The car don't look too bad. I'll give it that much. And wait till he gets out on track, chat. I love the paint job. I don't hate it either. Umarch, it's going to be chaos tomorrow, I'm telling you. And we'll be streaming it, of course. Shout out again to Mega Peter 96. Go and subscribe to that channel. Yeah. Oh, sandbagging. It's definitely sandbagging now. Look at this. Who is he? Where did they get him from? Oof. Oof. Yeah, lots of time left on the table now. Fans, you're a legend. He's got the racing disc and pads out to elevate that. I mean, one can't hate it. I don't hate it at all. Maximilian Verstappen about to embark. And look, to compare and contrast, I know some of the guys and girls in F1 they were testing TPC, Pirelli compound tyres for next year. Props, do you know what I mean? That's compulsory. But what were the rest of them doing? The rest of the F1 drivers had their feet up, do you know what I mean? They were engaging in real life. They weren't racing. None of the other bods were at the NORDSCHLEIFE today getting in practice. What do you mean? And not to mention the fact that Max Verstappen has just welcomed a new addition to his family. Yet and still, his missus and him indulges himself in the thing that he loves, GT3 racing. We could talk about the British Grand Prix and qualifying and Saudi Arabia and all these times Suzuka when Max Verstappen has been the difference, do you know what I mean? Outperformed the car and gapped the likes of Lando and Oscar Piastri in a quicker MCL 3.9. Rewind back to 2024, it was the same story, you know, particularly in the second and third of the championships. Mention no name, Brazil 2024, wet conditions, monsoon, but yet and still, that the dude, multi-millionaire by the way, private jet and all, can do anything he wants, is doing once again what he loves, racing. Nothing more simple or complicated than that. Let me read out the specs. 7:45, can you imagine? I need to verify it. 7:48 was the time that he did the other day, and this chap, the legend that is Mega Peter 96 on the YouTube, saying that he did 7:45. It needs verification, but would you put it beyond? I mean, is it an impossibility in the hands of Maximilian Verstappen? You bet your bottom dollar you should not bet against it. Max's quali lap will mind fudge those bods. I can't wait too much. Go on and let's go through it. He's going to get techie. Here's the schedule. In fact, let me read out I'm going to read out the GT3 sets. With respect to the car, that blue and red car in the Verstappen.com colours, 296 GT3. He'll be racing for team Emil Frey Racing. We'll go through this at 10:30 British tomorrow, again, just for the avoidance of doubt. The engine, 3-litre V6, not the bloody Cayman that he was racing the other day, with a view to tick some boxes and gain some licenses. Now 670 brake horsepower, GT3 regulated. Transmission will be 7-speed sequential gearbox, rear-wheel drive, of course. What else would you expect? 1280 kilograms minimum GT3 weight, conventional racing fuel, hybrid energy. It's going to get techie. It is going to get techie. Let me read this out to you so you're aware of the timings, because this is important. You don't want to miss out, eh? Go on then. Timings are as follows. British summertime. So right now it's 8:45 British summertime, 9:45 Central European. Just that we're singing from the same hymn sheet. British tomorrow, 7:15. The live stream will begin. I want to say Auto Addiction might be a good one. Motorsport are doing one of theirs. Sky, everybody's doing one of theirs. Probably as good a time as any. Very apropos to talk about how a rising Max Verstappen tide floats or F1. But do you think the internationally syndicated Sky F1 would be streaming this on YouTube? But for Maximilian Verstappen being there, you bet your bottom dollar they would not be. 7:15 live stream begins. 7:30 to 9 a.m. Qualifying kicks off. The pit walk's 9:20 that Max Verstappen probably won't partake in. 10:10 is grid formation. 11 a.m. is race start. I was planning to do a cheeky 10:30 start, but reading this again, I might kick off from 10 a.m. because it's going to get techier than techie things. Do you know what I mean? How very dare I even think for a second of not streaming a Maximilian Verstappen NLS race 9 at the NORDSCHLEIFE. What are we doing? Kart slalom final. It's going to be your day. This is going to get techie, chat. I genuinely, I can't wait. I'm going to be streaming it hard, and I make no apologies for that. It's going to get, I mean, not bad, this Max Verstappen fella. He'll be all right. 10 hours from tomorrow. Exactly this one. Hollis, I applaud his efforts to do what he wants to do, to pursue what he loves, eh? Techie for everyone else, yeah. It will get techie for everyone. Although he's got some rivals. He does have some rivals. We'll go through it on the stream tomorrow. I was reading about it, and there are some serious drivers in this thing. Nestre, or whatever it, Kevin Estre, excuse me. He won't be there, I don't think, tomorrow. But that's for next year. They'll build that properly and build it, market it. It would be promotional malpractice otherwise. Just a normal bloke, no fashion here. You're not going to see him anytime soon on British Vogue with his top half up and a bloody plant in his mouth. It's not that way. Fair play to Lando, no judgment. Do you know what I mean? If you harbour aspirations to become a fashionista, to walk the catwalk at New York Fashion Week, then props Lando. I mean, he's a good looking chap. Do you know what I mean? Some might call me jealous, but I just like my racers to race. Is that so much? 4 serious drivers there tomorrow, Kartik, I've heard, mate. We'll go through it. It's a Ferrari. It's supposed to be loud. Kevin will be a problem. He thought of us. What were we going to do in a race break? Yeah, 100%. Very selfless of the one that they call Maximilian Verstappen. 1 million. 2 weeks ago, it was 2 million. Tomorrow will be 4. There'll be a lot of people watching those. But again, I mean, for the avoidance of doubt, a rising Maximilian Verstappen tide floats or motorsport boats, let alone Formula One, eh? Let me say this as well. This is important. Formula One caps back on as we round third base. It will get it will absolutely, Kartik, get techier than techie things. Nah, bro, come on now, says V8. Why aren't we judging? That was exceedingly high. I can't, Michael. I can't. I want to be progressive, mate. I don't want to leverage any isms. Go on then. Here's what you need to know. There is a lot of chatter in the community about whether Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are going to blow this championship. I would argue in order for the legend that is Maximilian Verstappen, you destabilise the chat with that Lando. No. I know. I mean, that picture was wild. It was wild. But it isn't 1950s. Young, hungry, good-looking, or not so hungry, but good-looking drivers are going to go and do photo shoots, aren't they? I mean, the world needs, per Chris Harris on cars, the world needs another David Beckham once David Beckham gets to 75 or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And his good looks have all of a sudden faded. Finally. But no, here's what you need to know. Go on then. As far as the championships, it's important that we cover these points. Singapore next weekend. Singapore will be a very different track from the past 2 that we've experienced. Italy, Temple of Speed. Aerodynamic efficiency fades to black. And so too, previous race weekend at Azerbaijan, techie than techie things. Of course, you got Sector 2, but everybody said it would be more of a test than the Temple of Speed for Red Bull and their upgrades. RB21 season to date has been nothing but an understeer to snap oversteer merchant. Difficult to predict and anticipate for its mercurial handling dynamic. That's what Max has been complaining about. That's the hurdle at which the likes of Liam and Tsunoda, and before them, Checo Perez, Danny Rick, Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly. That's the hurdle at which they've all fallen. Now, however, it sounds like Pierre Vacher has done a couple of different things, eh? I know we're getting there, Diego, I'm telling you. We're a rising Max Verstappen tide floats all, but to him goes all of the glory and the credit. All heads must bow, all tongues must confess that Maximilian Verstappen fella may well be the greatest. Here's what's important, though. The championship context is key. Singapore's going to be a true test. Yeah, they look good around Monza. People didn't think they'd look good around Azerbaijan. Sector 2 with all these bloody 90-degree hairpin S-turns, Rascas settings. But they did look good. They were quick-est, maybe, or at least within earshot of McLaren, sufficiently within earshot to where Maximilian Verstappen can outperform the car and be the difference. Here's why that context is important. Because Singapore is a different track. A track around which Red Bull have never ever been good. Even in that bloody season. You remember RB19 season 2023, I want to say. The year when they won, as near as makes no difference, all of the Grand Prix. The one that they lost was when? Wasn't it Singapore? Carlos Sainz settings. You remember when Carlos Sainz was towing along his friend Lando Norris behind him so that Mercedes guys could have... That was Singapore, right? Where it was Lando in second, Carlos Sainz in first. Behind Lando, he had a fire-breathing dragon in George Russell, yeeted it into the barrier. And behind him was a fire-breathing dragon in turn, the one that they call Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson, Hamilton, meaning therefore... The Red Bull have never gone well around Singapore. It's one of their bogey tracks per se. It's contoured and they like to run the car super low. They don't ride bumps well, nor do they ride curbs well. And Singapore is that track. Therefore, it will be proof positive. They go well around there. If they can keep within earshot of McLaren and their MCL39, then Houston, we may have a problem. For the avoidance of doubt, the gap in the championship looks something like this. If memory serves. Oscar Piastri leads Lando Norris by circa 25 points. At the start of Azerbaijan, it was 31, lost 6 points. Therefore, further down the road, 69 points is the delta between Max and Oscar. 69. Now with sprints, he's still going to need good fortune, isn't he? As brilliant as Max Verstappen is, he will need for Oscar to bottle it. Maybe we have this conversation in 6 months and we will be using terms like bottle job. I think Oscar and Lando will have to bottle it and undergo fortuitous circumstances or lack thereof at the altar of the racing gods. It will have to be. Max Verstappen can't win this necessarily, but McLaren in the hands of Oscar and Lando can lose it. A lot of speculation. There has been a lot of speculation of whether Oscar Piastri has finally hit the wall. Finally, we're going to start to see mistakes. I'm not so sure. Chat fussy, you're a legend. Daniel, Safat might be right. I'm not so sure that that's the truth here. I'm not so sure that we're not doing recency bias by saying, wow, Oscar's become a bottle merchant overnight. Lest we forget, 44 races back to back from Oscar Piastri, all of which he's finished. 33 races back to back, all of which he scored points in record-breaking settings. There's only one man who's been more consistent in F1 history, in its 75-year storied history ever. He has a name and his name is Sir Lewis Hamilton. That means that's God-tier levels of consistency from an Oscar Piastri, who, by the way, is only in his 3rd season. What are we doing here then, chat? Can't write off Oscar Piastri. If you want to know who Oscar Piastri is, if we're going to do some Oscar glaze for a second, here's what you need to know. I think Max Verstappen, by proxy, sees and looks at OJP as he looks in the mirror, as he sees himself. There is respect there because Oscar Piastri knows how to chew his automotive pugilistic food before he swallows. He's not Lando Norris. He's very different. Doesn't make mistakes every single race. Yeah, he might not be as quick as Max in absolute terms pace. Not yet. But as far as his very peculiar, unique method of hand-to-hand combat, it's clinical, chat. You saw at the Miami Grand Prix the way Lando kept on refusing to chew his automotive food before he swallowed it. Whereas you've got Oscar Piastri there moving like Lewis Hamilton in 2021 at Brazil. Turn 4 settings, do you know what I mean? Playing as if he's Kasparov or now Magnus Carlsen. Queen sacrifice decline, 4 moves ahead, checkmate in. That's what Oscar Piastri is. He's clinical in the overtake. Mention no names, Exhibit A, Monza last year, chicane 2. Who even overtakes around the outside of the second chicane at Monza? Impossible. You saw how he dealt with Lewis Hamilton early on this year. Petrus, you're an absolute legend and far too kind. You saw how Oscar dealt with Lewis this year. Lando had to get on the bloody blower to the race engineer and find out the due diligence from Oscar. How did Oscar get round? Well, he nabbed him at turn 11, blah, blah, blah. Oscar doesn't need that. Oscar can just read the racing room differently, and that's why I think Max looks at Oscar the way he does and interacts with him the way he does, because Max sees himself, not fully formed just yet, not full born as at the time of writing, but Max will see himself in Oscar, and that's different, chat. That's why I fear from a Maximilian Verstappen perspective. If it were just Lando, if it was 69 points to Lando and Lando was leading the championship, we'd be having a very different conversation now. We would. It would be different. I would be backing Max Verstappen again as if I hadn't already. But because it's Oscar, Mr. Stoicism, Mr. Mental Fortitude, Mr. Bulletproof, Mr. Emotional Fort Knox, that fills me with woe and dread. Never bet against him, lazy. Not now, not ever. Lando's the bottom man. It's not Lando. We're not having this conversation at the altar of Lando. You see who Lando is. Lando's on British Vogue, do you know what I mean? His priority, as brilliant as he is in a car when he's had his Weetabix, his priority isn't even to win a championship. Ask that question to, if the accredited F1 journos have had their Weetabix and done their due diligence, when they get to Singapore, the first question they will ask Oscar, if indeed he's partaking in the FIA drivers' press conferences, what are your priorities, chap? Is winning the championship your top priority, sir? Because Lando, your teammate, said it wasn't his. What do you make of that, Oscar? And you bet your bottom dollar, your life, that Oscar will say, of course, what do you want about? The driver championship, that's my only priority. Lived all my life trying to win races and championship to get to F1. Not so I could just get this far. Oscar Piastri wants to win. What are we doing? With the stoic cracked under pressure. Umont, you are right. You are right, sir, but the first time in 33 races, isn't it? Go on, let's talk about the Oscar Piastri mistake. He's made a couple, but not of a material consequence too much. Let's go through them on one hand, because there won't be more than 5. Australia, first race. Petrus, you're an absolute legend. By the way, if you want to become a member, you know what to do. There's a little join button bottom left. Click that. Get yourself over to the community tab. There will be a link using which you can join the Discord. Elated Peddlers, as always, will get themselves priority in the chat. Here's Oscar Piastri's, if my memory serves, his mistakes, none of which, apart from last race weekend, have been of material consequence. Suzuka, big mistake. I want to say going into sector 3, final chicane that cost him the pole. Take that one. Australia, big mistake from Oscar Piastri over the cut, trying to navigate for the changing conditions. It was wet and then it wasn't wet and then it was wet again. Lando got lucky going through. Oscar Piastri not so lucky. That's 2 mistakes. What are the other ones, chat? So, of course, you got the British Grand Prix, the aggressiveness on the brakes for no reason. The brake check, why? You need to do that. Of course, you got a bit unlucky because of the timing of the safety car lights going out. But nevertheless, why be so aggressive? You had the 25 points in the bank, Oscar Piastri. The risk, therefore, was asymmetric. You had everything to lose and very little to gain, OJP, by doing what you did. There are 3 mistakes. Austria, turn 6, I will put that up there as well. Lando basically invited Oscar, as unconventional as that is a passing point. For me, Norris practically invited an overtaking move from OJP. Normally so clinical, didn't do it. Techie, very techie. So that's 4, right? We've counted 4. What's your 5th? Well, your 5th is last race weekend. Where, by the way, to Umach's point, there wasn't one mistake over the course of the race weekend. It was qualifying, barrier settings. That's your 5th mistake. It was barrier settings in the race proper. That's your 6th mistake from Oscar Piastri, if we're counting each and every single one of them. Flopped the start, full start, and before you carry on, went into anti-stall. That's 6 and 7, 8. Who much? They're okay, all right. Prosecution, resto, further questions, Your Honour. There have been a few, but yet and still we have this conversation under the aegis of a dude who's only in his 3rd season in F1, and because of that, chat, I think we want to extend in some grace. It's all fun and jokes until Mr. Butler beats OJP to the shit. Oof, easy G. Back in Lando. Now, let's see, chap. Let's see. This isn't me saying that Lando knows cannot or will not do it. My crystal ball is yet and still as murky as the next person's. But I think over the course of the next 7 races, it's I don't know, when push comes to shove, easy G. I think OJP, by dint of his mental fortitude and his resilience and his unflappable nature, universal soldier settings, I think Lando Norris might end up having kittens. If OJP bottles the second half of the season, Max will reign. So go on, let's talk about Max then. 69 points adrift. If Oscar, but let's take Lando. I'm not really worried. That's easy G. Cover your ears for a second. Lando and Norris fans, I'm gonna go full blasphemous or blasphemy even. Here's the thing: 69 points with 7 races. No one's ever overcome. And remember, at one point Max was like 100 and something points. Right? Nobody's ever overcome such a deficit in F1 history. Then the biggest was Max in 2022 early doors, something like 46 points down the road from Charles Leclerc. 7 races to go, 69 points. I think Max will need to smash it. I think Max will need a DNF. He'll need maybe 1 or 2 more DNFs from Oscar Piastri. And even then, 2 DNFs and Max wins both those races. And that brings the points deficit from 69 down to 19. What? That's chaos. Go on, let me say this again because this is important. Max wins the next 2 races and Oscar DNFs both of them. 69 minus 50, 19 points is still the deficit. So even with that, as far-fetched as that is an eventuality, with my Maximilian Verstappen 4, soon to be 5-time cap, very firmly on, I don't know, it's improbable, isn't it? It's techie. It won't be easy. Mood. I feel this race will be one of the best folk. It's going to be techie tomorrow, isn't it? And I can't wait. We'll be up bright and early streaming it. I might shift the stream time to 10. Max wins a record 10 when all is said and done, potentially. Nobody would want up Max with that margin, but Piastri is almost a rookie that happened into a rocket, potentially. I see where you're going with that. I mean, he needed the car. Every time I ask Peter Wins, a friend of the channel, legend, every time I ask him about Max, he always says, if you switch Max for Oscar, change the cars, Oscar nor Lando nor anybody else would see which way Max went, and tells you the true, the extent of the deficit, the gap in machinery over the course of the season today. Can't wait for tomorrow, Carty. It's going to be legend. As you drink, so you will perform. Take them at the average Michael and Easy, Mr. V. Looking out for Brazil 20. Oh, Brazil's going to be chaos this year. I can't wait. Especially imagine if it rains. Thou shalt not ever in your life back against the 4 soon to be 5-time champions, some say, Maximilian Verstappen. Back 10 o'clock tomorrow. You will get techier things. NLS Race 9. None other than one of the most legendary F1 racing drivers, to have ever gotten behind the wheel, the one that they call Maximilian Verstappen. Oh, the humanity.